morning, everybody. Hopefully you had a wonderful weekend and you're squeezing out every bit of summer that's left. So got some fun stuff to cover today. 5Q tape breakdown last week. Don't panic. This advisor panics and flees when he gets a little pushback. Dudes and dudettes, take a breath and use it to your advantage. So when you get pushback, how can we use pushback to our advantage, guys? How can we use pushback? When a client gives us pushback, how can we use that to our advantage? Remember, what is the most powerful tool that we have in the 5Q tool chest? What's the most powerful tool we have in the 5Q tool chest? Empower, Tom, right. Empower, that's right, Nick, Mark, Ollie, empower, empower, empower. So when somebody's giving us pushback, first of all, what should happen to the speed of our voice? The speed of our conversation. What's got to happen to us? Slow it down, yep. And then what happens to the volume of our voice? Lower. It's very difficult to argue with somebody who's talking slow and talking quiet, isn't it? I mean, you look like a lunatic if you're arguing with somebody who's talking slow and low. And then what you do is empower them. So what happens when you empower them? It turns a negative situation into a situation that you actually, that is by far, empowering is way, way, way. If you want to develop rapport, you don't say, hey, you went to U of M? I went to U of M too. Hey, you like fishing? I like fishing too. No, the most powerful, not superficial, but powerful type of rapport is empowering somebody, because people love people who agree with them. They love people who tell them that they're special. They love people who think they're smart. So if you haven't listened to this, go back and listen to this and think, how could I have empowered that person? Make sense? So this also brings up how to avoid an uncomfortable situation. So what do we do when we want to ask a question that could get pushback, or it could cause somebody to be, we're uncomfortable asking it because it could cause a client to think that, hey, that's personal, or why are you asking me that question? Or the answer to that question is obvious. That's just a rhetorical question. We have to ask the question, because if they don't say it in their own voice, what's it worth, guys? If they don't say something in their own voice, what's it worth? Yeah, that's right. Nothing. Nothing, nothing, nothing. So sometimes we have to ask rhetorical questions. And if somebody's being argumentative, they may take offense to that. How do we avoid problems with an uncomfortable question? What do we do to avoid problems with an uncomfortable question? Okay, some good shots at this, but nobody's getting it. Let me give you an example of this. Let's say that my wife is a little bit overweight. Okay, so let's say that she's a little bit overweight, and I'm going to give you a story of what would happen here. You tell me what would happen, the two different ways we do it here. So let's say that I want to go golfing. I've got young children, and I want to go golfing on Saturday. So I ask her, but I want to be courteous to her, because she's taking care of the kids all week long. So I don't want to saddle her with the kids if she had plans on Saturday. So I just simply innocently ask her, hey, do you have any plans on Saturday? You going to the gym or anything? What's going to happen? What's going to happen when I say, are you going to the gym? Now, I'm asking it to be argumentative, to tell her she's overweight, or I'm actually doing it out of a courteousness. My heart is in the right place, right? My heart is in the right place, but she's going to get what? Happy or mad? She's going to get mad. Hey, can you? Yeah, she's going to be PO'd. That's right. She's going to be mad and defensive. So what if instead I say, hey, honey, I don't want to step on your toes. You take such great care of the kids all week long. I do not want to step on your toes, but a gentleman that I do business with has invited me along with a foursome to go golfing on Saturday, and I don't want to say yes if you've got other plans. So again, go ahead and say no. I can kind of beg off of this. If I can go, I'd like to go, just simply because it is business and there's some good contacts here. But again, I don't want to step on your toes. I can get business other ways. If you've got plans Saturday, if for example, if you're going to the gym or something Saturday, just let me know, and then I can just kind of beg off. Now, is she going to get mad at that? So what was the difference there? So if you want to ask an uncomfortable question, what do you have to do before you ask that question? Tell them what, framing, right, Bruce? Tell them why you're asking that question before you ask the question. Is she going to say? Is she going to say? Mike is just nefariously hiding the fact that he wants me to lose weight? Is she going to go to that degree, or is she going to just take my explanation of why I'm asking the question on face value? Which way? Face value, right. So if you ever have to ask a question you think is rhetorical, where the client's going to roll their eyes and say, yes, the answer to this is obvious, or you're going to ask a question that maybe is personal, or a question, whatever you think, if it's a question you think may give you some pushback, explain why you're asking the question before you ask the question, and guess how smoothly that question goes. So let's say that we're going to be asking a rhetorical question, and are there some rhetorical questions in the 21-point checklist, guys? Are there some rhetorical questions there that the answer is obvious? Yes. So what you're going to say, what you could do, for example, say, so now you may be amazed. I'm going to ask you a question, but you may be amazed to know that people have answered this question all over the place. Surprisingly, you and I probably 90% of people answer it the same way, but the other 10% give me all sorts of answers. So I apologize up front for asking this question. I just want to make sure we're on the same page, and that and maybe you view life differently. Maybe you have life experiences that would make you answer this question differently. But I'm wondering if blah 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 blah. Are they going to be offended if I ask that question? If I phrase it then prior to the rhetorical question? So does that make sense? So guys, this is a tidbit. And can you only use this with 5Q, or can you use this everywhere in life, like with your wife, like with your teenage kids, like with the maitre d' at the restaurant who lost your everywhere. So these are the way we teach you to communicate at 5Q is not just for 5Q. It's a better way to communicate across the board. Make sense? So can life throw our clients curveballs? Our retired clients. Can life throw our client, this is a new subject obviously, curveballs? Of course it can, yeah. So what are some of the unexpected retirement expenses people can have? Well, they could have unexpected housing expenses. They could have household repairs. They could have a real estate, could we see a real estate downturn, guys, with what's happening right now? Did we see it in 2008? I mean, there can be all sorts of things. Can a neighbor move into your next door and drive your property value into the dirt? I mean, all sorts of things can happen that people don't expect. Also, people that want to downsize, what do they find out when they want to downsize? What is everybody that wants to downsize finding out when they go to buy their replacement place, their smaller place? Yeah, right now, good luck. Yeah, the smaller place, John, is more expensive, right? Yeah, Nick, they find out, boy, I'm moving into a townhouse or a condo, and it's as expensive as my house is. So, there's unexpected expenses in housing. There's unexpected transportation. Do cars conk out? Healthcare costs. Food costs can go up. And then we have other legal types of things. So we want to talk about some of these things. So first thing, the major thing is healthcare, right? Can healthcare throw huge monkey wrenches into people's retirements? Of course it can. So let's look at healthcare retirement, where your money goes. So breakdown of the estimate of $280,000, and we're going to see is $280,000 current for how much it costs somebody is going to how much somebody's going to spend in retirement. Now it's more right now. We're going to look at that here in a second. But the fact, and is this above and beyond? Is this number above and beyond Medicare, or is it saying Medicare is going to pay this $280,000? Above and beyond. That's exactly. You guys are smart. And is this $280,000 including long-term care, or is it just pure medical costs? Yeah, just pure medical costs, not long-term care. Now, if we're healthy, though, if I take care of myself, then I don't need to worry about healthcare costs, right? If I take care of myself, they found that you don't need to worry about medical costs, right? Right. What happens when you're healthy? What have they found out when you're healthy? Now, I'm not encouraging people to be unhealthy and to get type 2 diabetes and to go live an unhealthy lifestyle, don't exercise, and eat extremely badly so they can save on medical costs. But what they found is that if you're healthy, you'll spend more. That's right, because you'll live longer. And the longer you live, the more likely you're to have chronic. So should we be helping our clients with health care? Yes. And do we? Do we help them with health care? How do we help them with health care? How do we help them with health care? Where do people spend the vast majority of their health care expenses? Early in retirement or later in retirement? Later in retirement. And what kind of documents do we have that will help clients later in retirement? We have the medical power of attorney, and more importantly, we have the advanced directive. And which one is more important? The medical power of attorney, they're both important, but which one ends up being more important if you're worried about medical costs and leaving your wife impoverished? The medical power of attorney or the advanced directive will help make sure your wife or your husband is not left impoverished. Does that make sense? And as we said, it's no longer $280, it's gone up to $300,000 now. That's crazy, right? And that's not including monthly, that's not including long-term care. How much is long-term care? Well, I'll just take care of my husband. Have any of you had a family member or a client try to take care of their memory impaired or other type of health problem, major health problem in the home? Okay, what happens to that caregiver? How long can they do that before they are exhausted and need help? Yeah, not long. They'll end up in the hospital as well. So even you can't say, well, I'll just take care of my spouse. Now, assisted living is $5,200. These are average. If you're in the Northeast, it's going to be even more than this. And nursing home, $7,900, semi-private. That's not even private. That's semi-private. There's two people in a room. Make sense? So this is included. So we need to help clients with their healthcare costs. And in fact, we see from the Wall Street Journal, financial anxieties. When asked to identify their biggest financial concerns about retirement, surveyed couples said unexpected healthcare costs. So guys, should you just be poo-pooing the medical power of attorney and advanced directive in the 21-point checklist, or should you get really good at explaining why it's important and why, as an advisor, you'd be a lousy advisor if you do not cover it? Don't just wash it down the drain. I mean, we hear guys talk about, when we hear the tapes of guys doing the 21-point checklist, too often we hear people, advisors just like rushing through it, like, almost like they're embarrassed. I mean, Jeff, have you heard advisors where it almost sounded like they were embarrassed to be covering those things? Like, I don't even know I'm covering these things. It's, they're not even interested in these things. And why am I wasting the time? I mean, have you ever heard a tape where that's the case?
Oh, yeah, I've heard that a lot.
And yet when you hear an advisor do it right, how does the client respond?
Yeah, they're very appreciative.
Yeah. And especially, guys, which one? The husband or the wife is very appreciative? Because who's going to end up taking care of who 9 times out of 10? Yeah, the wife is. So we need to be good at those healthcare portions of the 21-point checklist. Second one is outliving retirement savings. And the people we work with, are they worried about outliving retirement savings, or are they worried about having to change their lifestyle in retirement? But it doesn't matter. Either way, are they anxious about it? Yeah. And right now, less people are anxious about it. Why are less people anxious about running out of money? Why are less retirees less worried about running out of money? We talked about it here 2 weeks ago. Yes, Dale, because everybody thinks the market's going to make 17% a year for the rest of their, for the rest of their lives. So how much retirement problems are people going to have if the market is making 17% a year? Is it going to do that? In fact, right now, where we're at, what's likely to happen for the next 8 years? An unbelievable rally for the next 8 years, or pretty doggone flat for the next 8 years? Pretty doggone flat. Inflation cutting into savings, reductions in Social Security benefits. And we covered this about a month ago. Is this something they better darn well be worried about? Now, how can we overcome the reductions in Social Security benefits? The 20% reduction in Social Security benefits, how can we overcome that? Especially for prospects, how can we help them overcome that? Do we have methodologies to help our clients overcome that? And should you be talking about them? The sale, yep, we have the sale and we have the HECM. And we have what? If you haven't looked at the tax presentation in our marketing, look at the tax presentation. It explains in another way that if you take your retirement in the correct manner, you can reduce the taxes you pay by 38%. Is that going to help overcome the reduction in Social Security benefits? So we have the tax reductions from the tax presentation. If you haven't looked at that, go back and watch that video of me doing that, and it'll walk you right through how that's the case. Then we have the HECM, and then we have the sale. And if you do a combination of those, guess what? Are they going to have any problems? Our clients will not have problems with Social Security going down. I mean, it's not a fun thing, but our clients won't have a problem with Social Security going down, but everybody else will. So should you be talking about healthcare benefits? Should you be talking about the living and retirement benefits and the reduction of Social Security? Those go together, and actually inflation as well, because Jeff has done a great job of explaining how our sale helps overcome the inflation danger that people face. So we are doing these things. We address all these things. But should you hide it, or should you talk about these things every annual meeting? Talk about them. Also, should you be talking about this stuff with your prospects? Yes, makes sense. These are the things people are worried about. Now, let's talk about another curveball that can be thrown at our clients. How many clients die at the same time? Couples die at the same time. And who normally dies first, husband or wife? Husband. So here's a great list to have, a great resource, and we're going to talk about resources here in a second, a resource to have in your armory to give to people. And you see down here, www.snugsafe.com. So I would have this, and would you only give this to clients who did lose a spouse? You would certainly give it to them, but who else would you give this to? Who else would you give this list to? Kids, awesome, Dale. Yeah, kids. Who else? Your clients. Why would you give them to your clients so that they can give out to what? Other folks that they know, which is going to increase your what? Referrals. How many of your competitors have something like this and are giving that out to their clients on a regular basis? Do you think? None. Also, this is a great thing to put in a newsletter. This is also a great thing to hand out at any of your, resource to hand out at any of your seminars or whatever types of things that you do. Now, would I just do this? Would I just do this? Make a copy of this? No, I would brand it. Brand it with your name, address, contact information, so that anybody that would use this, you're going to be the person who wants to know. Isn't this part of the Survivor's Guide? It absolutely is. What's the difference between this and the Survivor's Guide? What's the difference between this and the Survivor's Guide? Yeah, action items. It's simple, it's easy, it's action items. What's the likely somebody who's going to look at this as compared to go through the entire 30-page Survivor's Guide? So it's our job to both give them thorough things and things. I'll give you a quick example of that. Back when I was only making $50,000 a year, but I was a CFP, my financial plans were awesome. I mean, I spent days putting together a financial plan, again, negating gains against tax credits, and I was doing all sorts of things. And my plans should have been in the Smithsonian. How many people acted on those plans? No one. But when I said, hey, put this much money into the market and this much money in an FIA, guess how many people enacted those plans? Everyone. Because people want complicated or they want easy. They want easy and simple. So does that answer who asked that question here? Dean, does that answer your question? Why we would still do this besides just a survivor's guide? Also, when somebody loses a spouse, they've lost their Social Security check as well, right? So you want to walk through this with clients as well. Is they better have proof of death. So their Social Security number, obviously, it had that. How many of them have? I'm in the business, been talking about this stuff for 35 years. Does my wife have my birth certificate? Want to bet? I know I don't got hers. So when should you be doing it? How about marriage certificate? I have no clue where a marriage certificate is. So these are types of things that you get. Are you providing value when you recommend clients having these things? Because really, should your wife at the time of your death be looking for your birth certificate and your marriage certificate? Is she in a mindset to go find that stuff? Or to deal with the county and the city and everything else to get that stuff? So these are types of things that you can provide value up front. Because again, remember folks, with the prospects, we face a catch-22. They're not going to do business with you till they know you care. But you can't show that you care until they do business with you. But because if you do these things prior to do the business with you, are you showing that you care? Yes. Does that make sense? Well, Dale says, hey, can we put this stuff in DocuBank? Yeah, that would be the awesome suggestion, Dale. That's the kind of
Sorry, guys, this is Missy. Looks like Mike's phone actually just disconnected, so just bear with us here for just a second. Let's get him back on. I apologize. So you guys can hear me hopefully okay. Just throw a little note in the chat there that says that you perfect. Okay, awesome. We'll get him back on here in just a moment. So hold up just a second. Sorry, guys, just hang in there just a bit longer. Just getting him back on here.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We sure can. Thank you.
Thank you, Xfinity. Appreciate that very much for disconnecting me. So guys, this will only take about 15, this website will only take you about 15 minutes to read, but guess how many tidbits you will have on here that you could use both with prospects and clients and look like you are on their side. Please, please, please go. And Missy, can we attach this link to this call so they can go there?
Yep,
Fantastic information. Cool. So let me get out of here, back to the, okay. Left my husband alone for 1 hour, and this is what happened. Which I thought was kind of funny because there's lots of things that that we have to worry about. And we just touched on this when we talked about caregiving. So taking care of your how many people, and this is the same thing for my mother-in-law. I mean, she loved her husband. She was dutiful, but boy, how exhausted did taking care of her husband who was suffering from Alzheimer's. I mean, do you think there were days that she just wanted to walk away? She didn't. Do you think she had days when she just wanted to walk away? So you need to make sure you're helping your clients with that. Now, the other thing is we got to help them with is fraud. Why do people go after retired people for fraud? Because they are the targets. Why do they go after them for fraud? 2 reasons. What are the 2 reasons? It's where the money is, yep. And they're less cognitively, they're less able to, and very, very smart people fall for things more easily when they're older, because they're out of the swing of things. Also, what's the likelihood somebody who's older is going to report fraud? What's the likelihood somebody who's older is going to report fraud? Low. Why don't they report fraud? Yes, they're embarrassed. They're afraid, oh my God, now my kids are going to put me in the home. So there's lots of reasons. So you need to help clients with this. One of the most common symptoms of social isolation is not having anyone to discuss important things with. Seniors who have been victimized by identity thefts are less likely to tell anyone about it. Whether living independently or in a community, loneliness is a common affliction of the elderly, making it even more likely for them to be preyed upon by identity thieves. So here's how you can help with all of these things we talked about. How can we help with all these things we just talked about? Well, COVID changed the game for life in so many ways. It's changed it mentally, physically, socially, emotionally, spiritually, financially. Did everybody experience these kind of changes in the COVID year, 2020? Did everybody feel these things? Yes. So how easy it is now to have a bridging conversation, because people have a different mindset now. They have a different mindset to have a bridging conversation about some of the things we talked about today. So one of the best ways to start a difficult conversation, talking about healthcare, talking about, which isn't fun, talking about long-term care, which isn't fun, talking about fraud, which isn't fun, talking about all these things that aren't fun, what's the best way to begin? Well, one of the best ways to do it is with a third-party story. Hey, how about that? It's like a mediator's opening statement. Do we use third-party stories actively within the 21-point checklist? Yes, we do. So guess what? If you want to start these difficult conversations with your clients at your annual meetings, you started out with a story of what happened to somebody else, right? And then you talk about the plan to take care of those things. Because you know what? What they found is people want financial plans now. No, everybody's got one, right? So they're finding more and more what retirees want is a holistic viewpoint. Retirees want a holistic viewpoint. Have you run across any financial planning software or any entity that does a better job of holistic planning than the 21-point checklist and all the things that we teach you? We're right in the sweet spot for the things that are happening right now. And why do people want a more holistic view? Because of what happened in 2020. So the best way to start to reinforce these things that we've talked about, because all these things we talk about in the 21-point checklist, in the 7 non-financial things, should you be covering them every single time you have an annual meeting? Should you cover the survivor's guide? Should you cover the will and trust? Should you cover the medical power of attorney and advance directive? Should you cover identity theft? Should you cover the property casualty? Yes, every single time. Why? First of all, it's reminding them that you're all about the money, or you care about them as human beings. You care about them as human beings. Also, these things require reinforcement. I had clients for 4 years, and I would say, "Did you fill out that survivor's guide?" "Oh no, shoot, I didn't cover those. Didn't do that. Do you have another one?" So did I chastise them, or did I just give them another one? My job is not to make them fill out the survivor's guide. My job is to be a facilitator and to constantly reinforce the power of that. Does that make sense? So what you want to do is continuous reinforcement. You can do it at intervals, ratios. So, which one is better, a continuous reinforcement or partial reinforcement for what psychology found? Where you just, annual meetings, we just do it at annual meetings, or is it better to do it sometimes often, sometimes you skip it, sometimes you do it? They found partial. Why? Partial is better because you probably remember from your college days, if you have college psychology, which was what? The better reinforcement is when every time the rats press the button, they get food, or every time the rat presses the button, sometimes they get food, sometimes they don't get food. It's that partial. So again, what I'm saying here is that find other reasons other than the annual review to bring these things up. Why? Or where? I'm sorry, where? Where can you bring these other things up? Can you have little focus groups just revolving around one of these topics for your clients? Yes, you can drip on them. Can you have, and does Jeff have these kind of topics in the newsletter that he writes for us every single month? Yes. Are these things that you could just send out a special thing for, or have a phone call for? Yeah, there's all sorts of ways you can reinforce it, okay? So stories, annual reviews, epidemic marketing, social media posting, short videos in a blog. These are all ways you can reinforce these things. And the nice thing is, by reinforcing these things, you're saying, I only care about the money, or I care about you as a human being every time you reinforce. So when the market does stop, what does that do to your relationship with them? They're not going to be happy the market went down, but they're going to be much less angry at you than somebody who's saying, I got a great money manager and we're going to go, we'll protect you in the downside and blah, 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 blah. Who's more likely to lose a client, you or that person who's always talking about how great his money manager is? What you're going to be doing is going around with a dustpan and collecting all those other clients that those guys are losing. Okay? So make sure you're doing these things. And also think of yourself as a resource to your clients. So that checklist for when people die, that's a resource. That's a resource. The kind of topics Jeff writes for you in the epidemic marketing newsletter, you're being a resource. Make sure you're a resource for your clients, not just in the financial stuff, but all the non-financial things. And we have tons of things you can use for that. Got to be a resource. Also, we want to learn from the mistakes of others, so you can't live long enough to make them all yourself. So one of the great things to get a conversation started with your clients is, hey, if you were going to write a letter, and what do we call those letters that they could write to talk to their family? Not about financial stuff, but about the lessons they've learned. What do we call that letter? Because is that a resource that you could be using for your clients and your prospects? And Missy, where's that located again on the website?
The legacy letter on the
legacy
website.
Letter, right, Nick?
Yep.
Well, just type in legacy in the top, right, and then it'll bring it right to where they can get that.
Yep, and it's actually underneath the marketing archives. Let's see.
Okay.
I can find it here for you in just a second.
Okay, let me look here.
The Halo, so the low-cost marketing, and it's part of the Halo system. Or the COVID-19 edition is also under there.
Same, yeah. Is it the legacy letter in there, or is it hyperlinked someplace? Because I don't see it in there.
I'm sorry, it's underneath the COVID one. So I'll make sure. Yeah, if you click on the COVID edition one, it's linked separately there.
Oh, okay. There it is, right there, guys. Right there. So we have that resource for them. Okay. So now, here's a great way to start this conversation. So if you were to just say, here's one hard lesson that I've learned that I want to make sure you don't have to live through, what would that lesson be? Guys, is that a great way to start the question? Would that really open up your clients? Do they all like to tell about that thing that they ran up against and how they overcame that? Is that something clients love to talk about? In fact, is that something that old people love to talk about? Is that something? Yes, they love to talk about that. So that's a great way to start that conversation. Now, the great thing about that is, should you be collecting those stories yourself? Yes, because then what you can do is you can start sharing those lessons learned with other people on why they need to get some of these things done. See, and it's those stories. Those stories is how our brain is wired. We absorb numbers and facts and details, but the best thing that we learn to do or remember things is we glue them together in our heads with stories. And then we can learn from other people's mistakes. So what is, everybody type in, what is the one factor you pulled from this coaching call today? What is the one thing we've been talking about in this coaching call today? Be interesting to see what you guys have, what you think the one thing you take away from this coaching call. Non-finance is critical, absolutely. That we care, absolutely. What else? Show them we care, yep, absolutely. that we should be doing this once or every single time. Be a resource in different ways. Excellent, Vance. Constant contact, right, Tom? Multiple resources reminding clients, yes. Don't miss the non-financial, yes, William. So those are, guys, those non-financial things are not throwaways. They're not use them one time to get a client. No, you talk about them constantly with clients, with prospects. You're going to find it's going to be a lot better when the market turns, that you're going to have a lot less problems with your clients. You're going to be able to absorb a lot more of your competitors' clients, and it's going to get you a lot more referrals. So please, please, please don't give short shrift to those non-financial things, because these are things that can really hurt people in retirement. Make sense? Super. Well, that's all I've got for today. I really appreciate you guys. Thanks for being on the call. I hope you find this kind of information worthwhile, but it's not worthwhile unless you put it into action. So make sure every annual meeting you're talking about these things, okay? With every prospect, you're talking about these things. You have a great rest of the week. We'll talk to you all next Monday. Thanks, everybody.